Shriekers are a human-sized mushroom that have the appearance of a violet fungi. They lack the ability to move, but can produce a very loud and piercing sound, hence the name Shrieker. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Shrieker, and I'm going to be giving you some awesome artwork to go along with it. So like I was saying, the human-sized fungus of the Shrieker is very sort of like a mushroom that you would see sort of as you would eat, except for of course it being super large. I mean, it's got a nice sort of one of those shapes you can think about when you're thinking of a mushroom, and it has all of these little holes all over it, and these are to use to detect light and motion, which it responds to by shrieking, of course, and then it gives out this high-pitched squeal for between about 5 and 15 seconds to scare off any predators in the area. And of course, these things are mostly found in the Underdark, so you can sort of stumble across them, giving you a fright and that sort of thing. So this is what I think about when we think about a Shrieker, and this is how they are typically depicted in these nice big bulbous really sort of mushroomy mushrooms, I guess is how I would say it, but very cool and fun to look at. But this is not what I went with in my depiction of a Shrieker. Shriekers have also poisonous to people and creatures, except for one creature that has sort of built up an immunity to the poison of a Shrieker, and that is a hooked horror, which has adapted to eating them without any problems. I've sort of like adapted their digestive system and built up an immunity towards the Shrieker's poison. So these are one creature that actually do prey upon them. The hooked horrors find them as a nice easy meal. So something cool and fun that you can think of to do with your Underdark ecology when you're sort of describing a scene. You could have fun describing hooked horrors chewing on these nice big fungi that we have here. One thing that the Shrieker can also be used for, and is also known for, is that their spores as well as the plant itself can be used as sort of vital ingredients for potion making for alchemists. So another thing you can use for putting them into your campaign is having these as an adventure to go out and search for these Shriekers that are going to give you a lot of problems and hassles to get those nice rare ingredients for brewing potions for an alchemist. So there is just a few ways that you can use and also have some like background knowledge and lore of a Shrieker here, but this is not what I've done in terms of using the Shrieker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about my process for coming up with the Shrieker, why I'm depicting it in this way. So for my Shrieker of course is very different to the common Shrieker, as like I've been saying, is that it's a human-sized fungus, whereas I've gone for a much smaller version, as I want to use them in sort of a different manner, and also in my artwork that I'm doing here, just depict them just a little bit differently from what they're officially depicted as, to give me something interesting and fun to create. So something slightly different, but still giving off, hopefully still giving off the same vibe as the original creature that I'm trying to depict. Now my Shrieker is more of a, I guess probably more of like an Underdark flower, although I've tried to depict it as a trumpet mushroom, I believe there, or this trumpet fungus. Anyway, there are some fungus that look like sort of mini trumpets, and that's sort of what I've gone on here, because I wanted to make them like the sound comes blasting out of them. As well as that too, I've also combined them with a flower, and I've made them sort of look like a old-timey gramophone as well. To putting all those things together, hopefully it comes off what I'm trying to do here with a depiction of the Shrieker. Because in doing them this way, I can make them a whole bunch of sort of variety and colors, and make them more of like, they can still be a fungus, making them look a little bit more like a flower. Would make them a little less detectable by sort of like veteran players of D&D who know a lot of the monsters in the monster manual. So depicting them like this can just give them that difference enough, but still give the same, of course, overall vibe of the creature that we're using here. And I wanted to make them small because what I wanted to do is make them so they can be dotted around the place at different angles, so you can have them just sort of all over the place. Because I think one of the fun things that you can do with the Shrieker is you can use them as sort of an alarm system, as I think that would be super fun to do with these creatures. As I think I would depict them as like a alarm system for drow in the Underdark, that they plant these nice little, in my case like flower fungi, that they can sort of place around the place, so when they bloom and come into like their flowering stage, that is when they're sort of activated. But they start off as a nice little plant that they can attach to the walls. Well, I've got the little vines all over it, so they can plant the base plant there, let it grow, and then once the thing has like fully bloomed, it can send out its spores and detect. So when a creature or an adventuring party or something like that comes past, it's going to set off these alarms, and then the drow are going to know where they are. And one other thing too you could do with these is you could make them produce different sounds by the colors of the Shriekers that I've depicted here, making them more sort of cross between a flower and a fungi, like, so they can tell exactly where each thing is by the pitch and the scream of the stalker that we have here in the shadows, essentially, because people aren't going to really be sort of looking for a Shrieker sort of planted around in a lot of areas. So if you also combine that with having a bunch of different sounds produced by different ones, so if a drow party is, or a drow like warband I guess, is tracking them down, or they're trying to invade a drow home, they know exactly where each one of these things is. I think they can make that like a fun combat encounter, or a fun scenario with having your party sort of sneak around and setting off different alarms to get them to do different things. I think that would be a cool, fun thing to do. And that was just one of the things that I was coming up with when I was drawing them and doing like that. And I think having them sort of color-coded is a cool way for your party to figure out eventually of what each one does, so you can have them trip alarms with different things. As well as that too, I think having them create either like a stun effect if you get within their radius, or like a pushback effect, even like a knockdown effect, as you can see depicting it here, making it so it shoots out like this hypersonic beam essentially of like force that it's shrieking down. Of course I'm trying to make it like a loud sound, but it could also be depicted as it's like physically forcing you back and pushing you away. So that could also be a fun little thing to try and deal with these things while you're trying to take them out, that they are constantly shooting out these waves of sound that are knocking you down or pushing you back, making it a little bit harder to get to. And since I've made them like a smaller plant that can be placed in different areas, that they can be up in higher directions or lower directions, sort of creating a fun little combat encounter where people could be pushed around if they're all angled right, which I think would be super fun, or constantly forcing them down but making them a little bit harder to get at by having you sort of traverse all over the map to try and get them. I think would be a cool little fun thing to do with these creatures. So that's like just one of the fun little scenarios that I could come up with based on what I was drawing here. So if you guys have come up with anything like this, or have used Shriekers in a fun way, leave them down in the comments. I'd be really happy to hear if you guys have used some Shriekers in some really cool and interesting ways. So even when I have my games of D&D, maybe I can use some of your ideas. Maybe you could use my idea with the way they're depicted and the way I was talking about using them here, giving you some fun, interesting encounters for monsters that don't get a lot of love but can have a little bit of fun and unique surprise with them. So interested in hearing your opinions on that. And so with you telling me that, I think that would be really fun, as well as leaving comments down too if you're enjoying this series that I'm sort of coming up with here, which is sort of featuring a monster or a creature from an RPG and giving them a little bit of a twist, while also giving you some interesting artwork to look at while we're discussing these sorts of things. I always like to hear feedback from you guys as well regarding that too. This is a new sort of like series that I'm trying out for me on here, so always happy to hear from you guys if you're liking it, or even if you have any suggestions for other creatures that you would like to see me do here as well. Would also be fun. But with that, I think we're gonna go into our final shots here of the artwork fully completed, so we can see how it came out in the end. And so there you have it, guys. This is my final finished artwork of a Shrieker. So I hope you find this video interesting, whether you want to follow along with doing this artwork like I have here, or you just want to use the video as some inspiration and using a Shrieker in your own game for your adventuring party. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.